What's up, tribe? Thank you for being here and welcome to my channel. Today's post is titled Be Born, and as it's a dialogue between Matias and his higher self, I'd be referring to Matias as me and his higher self as I am. Me. Our 10-day week begins in relation to the physical body, and when I think about it, I can't stop seeing the image of a child being born. Why? I am, because this is the first concept to work on, the birth. The energy of Virgo is the earth, and its work is related to the harvest of what was sown, the seed that has borne fruit, and it is time to collect them. The word to be born comes from the Indo-European Guinea, which means to produce. Origin of the words to generate, gene, genetics, genital. Virgo's work is precisely the generation of the products that the community will eat, that will give life. Genetics is the production of a living being, just as the genitals are the tools that allow this manifestation. The earth is the place where the seed finds its shelter and rocks, absorbing the nutrients and minerals from the soil, and making its way into its germination, just as the sprouting of the seed is the birth of a tree. Me, the creation of a body, therefore, is like the process of sowing and reaping, in which the seed is placed in the ground, watered, and through patience we see how it awakens its potential, sprouting and expressing its potentials, multiplying, and as it grows and expands, its parts begin to identify and specify, creating a new being, which, when ready, will deliver the fruit during the harvest. But this fruit, at the same time, is obtained by separating its parts, separating the chaff from the wheat. Is that part of birth according to Virgo's eyes? I am. Being born is the complementary face to dying. We have been talking about the process of denial and death these days. And the only reason we are invited to die consciously and keep in mind the inevitable reality of their deaths is because it is intended that you can be born again. In the universe, there's no death without birth, nor birth without death, since it's an instantaneous cycle. Death and resurrection through birth are transversal to all dimensions. Perhaps the forms occur in different ways and mechanisms, but transmutation and transcendence are essential and immutable keys to the process of cosmic being. When you lose fear of death and let go of life, you are not abandoning it, but you are precisely launching yourself to be reborn. Me. That is to say that to accept our physical death is to understand that there will be a spiritual birth, and that in turn the spirit will also have a kind of death, which we here call birth, not? I am. Just as the waves of vibration have their positive and negative that move creation, and energy has its reactionary and action emotions, the physical body also experiences this undulation through birth and death. You free yourself from the concept of death when you understand that from another plane it is said to be born. You free yourself from the concept of clinging to life when you see that the most eternal being decides to let itself die, to be born and live what you are today. Me. Why would an eternal being want to limit itself by being born in a physical body? I am. Because eternity cannot fully know what it has thought. It cannot understand it without living it. It does not know the perspective without separating. It does not understand joy without pain. The process loses meaning without time. It does not feel without space. The eternal being needs to limit itself to know what it's capable of. What would be the meaning of creation if it were not being able to feel? If the mind had simply remained silent within enlightenment? God does not know everything, for he has not experienced. Wisdom is only acquired in experience. Love is only felt when you recognize yourself in others. Will only awakens when there's a need and intention to move forward and be free. This is why the universal mind has designed in its wide and free mind the planes of limitation. Ideas became contemplation. What was observed was expressed in songs. The songs awoke the vibration, which in its amplification of frequency created light and energy. And the energies were structured in dissonances, branching out into electricity, pulses, magnetism, joining vibrations in patterns, creating forms, which in their combinations generated elements that in their multiplication evolved in biology. Thus, the spirit found a way to multiply and expand in the millions of versions it dreamed of. The cells contained their potential, co-created in genetic geometric patterns. That is to say, that life was the spiritual production, like the architect who designs his own house, like the engineer who builds a city where he can move around, like the businessman who generates a utility enterprise. Life was a design capable of allowing him to produce his own home, his own car, his own food, his own tools, and thus to be able to manifest his mind, to realize himself. We call this realization of being, to make an idea something real, to be able to see the result of what was planned. Me, the spirit, the mind, then, has designed a system of multiplication, distortion, and error just to be able to see what it was capable of generating, of producing, and therefore it needs to be born again and again. I am, in essence, every spirit is willing to die in eternity to manifest itself in the other, where it designs the four elements that will give rise to its life. Birth is the key to understanding that our own being has not come to life to escape from it through enlightenment, but to live precisely what its enlightenment has allowed it to create. Birth is not a divine punishment, but a spiritual blessing. He is the artist who is immersed in the love of his work. He is the engineer who dares to live in the house that he himself designed. Me, how do we do it? I am. Look for the positives and negatives with which you resonate. By the law of vibration, resonance shows you the way. By the law of rhythm, he is naturally shown what to face. By the law of duality, she understands both energies in which she resonates as mother and father, and without seeing their faces, only hearing the vibration that constitutes them. The speed of their vibrations decreases to create a bond with both that is manifested in matter. Me. Is love necessary for this? I am. Human love? Me. Yes. As a couple, they say it's necessary that the act carries love. I am. Oh no. You don't need human love. Love must be cellular. It is called attraction, magnetism. The force of universal love is not romantic, it's magnetic. Romanticism is the culturalization of universal love, which is freer of expectations. It is biological. The vibration of love is resonance, and it is expressed magnetically, not culturally. Of course, romantic love, falling in love, or becoming fully aware of the act, consecrates the bond and strengthens the channel. But tell me, do you think that when I choose to manifest myself in you, like Matthias, I looked for a channel of a man and a woman who loved each other deeply? Me, well, clearly not, because my parents only had sex one night, once, without love. I am, and did that make you less connected or divine? Me, no. It actually allowed me to love both of them more freely, without judgment. I am, because it has nothing to do with the love of ideology, but with the appropriate and useful energy for downloading information. Sometimes birth channels are helpful, but it has nothing to do with the concepts of father, mother, or partner. Otherwise, we could say that all adoptees do not have a soul or love, and in reality, it is not so. Each individual lives a different and specific life and does not depend on the link between the channels, but on the state of perception of who is manifested. You could have had a trauma because of your history with your father, as many have suffered the lack of it, when you have not suffered it. In fact, you have been grateful, and today you get along very well with your father for it. Each one is different. You cannot pretend to believe that a balanced or enlightened being is only born from the love product of a man and a woman, because it is not like that. The spirit is neutral. It loves unconditionally. It is not limited to a maternal or paternal biological body. A spirit is born free and dies free from human cultural expectations. Which brings us to today's topic and question. How were you born? Me, you mean the way? Natural delivery, cesarean section, or those things? I am. The life of a spiritual being is marked by the moment of birth, beyond the astrological, the way in which it has been received in the world, contemplating the horizon of life, on the other side. Most traumas come from this moment. Most perceptions and ties are generated at that moment. Was it pleasant? Was it painful? Did I feel abandoned? I cried? What did I feel? What was your reaction at birth? Being aware of this moment will help you to recognize the first pulse with which you came into this world. Me, I was born by cesarean section. She was supposed to be born on August 12th, 1987, but the doctor was going on vacation that week, and since my mother was 17 years old, she preferred to do her cesarean section because she was a first time, something very common in the 80s, in which childbirth was taken as an operation and removal of an organ or a tumor. There was no option for natural childbirth, and sometimes I thought that was unnatural and bad for me. I still think it is absurd and unnatural. However, over time, I understood that it had very positive effects on me. I remember the moment when I came out of the womb with my eyes wide open. I remember the doctor's glasses in front of me, and in anticipation, I did not cry, but looked at everyone. My grandmother remembers that when the doctor took me to the room, there were so many people waiting that he lifted me up like the Lion King so that everyone could see me. And she says that I silently looked them in the eye one by one, like taking a list to see if they were all there or not. I don't remember my labor and pain, and my mother doesn't remember it that way either. Rather, the energy was, no time, let's do it quickly and see if everyone's ready. This defined how I lived my life. I came to the world without crying. I came to the world without making efforts. Everything served. I did not have to fight to be born. I did not have to press anything. Everything came to me calmly. Always see the world analyzing if everything is there. If all those who had to come to start came like a teacher who calls her students to start the class or start the mission. Despite the difficulties of being different, my life has been very easy. I never had to fight or feel excluded. I always knew how to get ahead in the easiest way, thanks to not having struggled at first to live at birth. We needed it. Otherwise, we could not be here now having this free conversation, asking the question of how was the birth, how I came to the world, what emotions were in the environment when you were born, helps us to understand that energy with which we put the first imprint on our lives. So write it down, develop this, how, where, who, what emotions, and acknowledge the birth of your being in the flow of life. The different paths, the fabric of everything that Spirit has designed, manifests itself at the moment of your birth. Observe and become aware of your birth, and you can die and be reborn again and again with full awareness that you will know how to cope with the difficulties of life. Me, I die and I'm reborn in the framework of the universal mind. Here and now, I decide to be born again, accepting my birth. I am accepting your birth is valuing the decision of your spirit. Honor that moment that united the I am with the I, and only then can you return to the I together with the I am.